This podcast is made possible in part by the Kent County Medical Society Alliance.
Welcome to the Be Nice podcast, where we will break down conversation when it comes to mental health, mental illness. We will be, hopefully you'll take away knowledge to have the confidence to take action. This can be done through a 4-step, simple action plan, Be Nice. Notice, invite, challenge, and empower. We bring real stories to you to have positive outcomes of change. Today, our guest, I'm proud of our guest, her name is Brittany Midolo, and Brittany is an author of a book, Decide to Survive, and she will be helping us to weave through her story of addiction. I would love for you to look at our website for more information at benice.org. As we do every week, we're going to bust out a myth. And so our myth today is today's mental health myth is that using alcohol or other drugs is a choice. So if someone gets addicted, it's their fault. In reality, addiction is extremely complex, and it is a complex brain disease, not a simple matter of willpower. While someone might choose to use substance initially, addiction changes the brain's reward and impulse control systems, making it extremely hard to stop. It's not a moral failure, and continuing to use despite the harm is part of the disease. This myth fuels stigma, and that's one of our reasons why we're doing this podcast, is to bust these stigmas. Therefore, encouraging people to have the knowledge, have the confidence to take action when someone you love or you yourself might be struggling. Remember that we want to make sure that people understand that we will be talking about sensitive material. Maybe this will have an effect on you. Maybe it will bring about thoughts and feelings where you need help and assistance. We want to remind everyone that there are resources available for anyone listening today. And the number one is 988, which is a crisis helpline, along with texting Be Nice to 741-741. Joining us today is Brittany Midolo, and I got that down now, I'm pretty sure. And Brittany did recently author a book on Decide to Survive, How I Beat Addiction, and I love this part, how you can too. So Brittany, tell us a little bit more about your journey with substance use disorder and what led you to where you are today.
Okay. I grew up kind of in a normal Midwest Christian family. Nothing really bad. I struggled a little bit with getting along with my dad. We butt heads a lot, and I lost self-esteem very early, so I never really had it. When I got to high school, I got pregnant when I was 16, had my daughter, so that was extremely hard to go through and try to figure that all out, along with all my self-esteem issues. So after that, I started partying and going out and drinking all the time. And then I was getting kind of like criticized or in trouble because I was going down the wrong path from my parents. Shortly after that, I enrolled in medical school for a medical assisting. I met a really bad crowd. We started to study, which we weren't really studying. We were drinking and they were doing drugs. I didn't do drugs yet. But that became an issue. I never came home. I never saw my daughter. And then I found out the guy that I had liked was doing heroin. And I said I wouldn't do that, wouldn't go that line. But one day I was in so much pain that he said, you have to try this. The doctors aren't helping you.
So this was psychological pain?
Yeah, and physical. And he said, the doctors are not helping you. You have to try this. So he loaded up a syringe of heroin, and I tried it, and I never let go.
Wow. So how old were you, just out of curiosity, how old were you when you started partying, meaning drinking?
17, right after my daughter.
Okay, and then was your first drug of choice marijuana?
Nope, I have never used it. Yeah, I just jumped right to the hard stuff.
Wow. Okay, so then continue.
Okay, so then I got into that lifestyle, I didn't see my daughter at all anymore. If I did, it was a mess. It wasn't good for her. And I had seen a lot of kids in these homes where their parents are addicted and everything's laying around, needles, weed, drugs where the kids could grab it. So I met with my parents one day and I told them, I can't have my daughter down this road I'm going. I don't want to have her. So I signed her over to my parents.
Tough decisions.
Very.
Yep.
I knew it was the right decision, though, because she deserved to have a better life than I was going to be able to give her.
So at that point, were your parents wanting to help you? Were they knowledgeable about what you were going through?
Yeah, so they were knowledgeable. My dad's a police officer, so they knew what was going on. And I even told them when I turned her over, I'm addicted to heroin. I can't do this, and I don't want this for her. They have done nothing but support me this entire time. They've been my rock through this.
Yeah, it sounds like it. My God. And to watch their daughter is so difficult also.
100%.
Those choices.
Yeah.
So then, continue.
Okay. So then I got really into the drugs. And I had an overdose where I was pronounced dead. They called my parents and said she's dead. They shocked me one more time. I came to life and was very pissed off that I wasn't high. So I ripped out all my IVs and everything and left the hospital and walked right back to my drug home and really started hitting the streets at this point is where it turned, where I turned into prostitution and hookering and anything you can think of. I had been beaten several times at this point, to needing stitches and stuff where I would we had a doctor, we called him a doctor, but he wasn't really a doctor, and he'd come over and stitch me up, and I just kept using and using and using.
How terrifying. So then, at what point, now you're in this journey, how old are you at this point?
20.
20. So within 2 years, within 3 years, you became extremely addicted with no resources or help.
Correct.
What were people doing to help you? Was there anybody trying to help you?
They were trying to help me. They wanted me to come home, detox, or go to rehab or any of that. But I don't think it was the way it was said or came at felt very judgmental at the time when I was high. And I felt like they were trying to control me. So I don't think it was the correct way. They were very loving and would help me. They let me stay with them, a couple of times here and there and things like that. But I just don't feel like there wasn't enough information for their side to help.
Yeah. And, we've come a long way now. This was, what year? 20...
Oh my gosh, I'm 35 right now, so that would have been back in...
15 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so continue. So then what? So here we are.
Yep.
You're back at this drug house. You are, you've almost died. So take us back to that time.
So the house, just to paint a picture of kind of what it looked like, the house was destroyed. We had a lot of people who did crack there, so they always thought they lost their crack. So they would dump the trash out and look through the trash and try to find it. We had no food, no drinks, no anything. It was just get the next high, get the next high. We were stealing things. I was having sex for money at that point. And then my boyfriend at the time went to prison. So when I lost him, I felt like I was out on the streets alone.
Sure.
And I had nothing. How do you survive like that? You would think most people would be like, well, I need to go home and get better myself. But I didn't. The pull was too strong. I couldn't go back. I was embarrassed. At that point, you don't want to be doing what you're doing. You don't want to be where you are, right? As much as the people on the other side don't want to see you there, you don't want to be there.
Sure.
So then I met my girlfriend, Alicia, and I lived with her for a long time. And she was the girlfriend of our dealer. So we would run drugs for him. We could get it for free most of the time. So I really started to lean on her. And we were high. And this is when I started really being, her and I would go out and hooker, prostitute, whatever you want to call it. We would go to our main people and we would do it together. And, you know, you make that money and you're trying to pay rent and do everything, but you're not. You're not paying rent because that money you just made is going to our heroin right away.
Yeah.
If we had to pay.
Yeah.
So again.
Were you ever in trouble with the law?
Yes.
So at what point would they get involved, or at what point were they trying to help you find resources?
So I got involved with the police actually right before I went to Argentina for my treatment. I had gone to Brighton rehab.
Okay.
I had met a guy there. He did Xanax and I was heroin. We left, even though my parents told me not to. We left. We lived with his mom. We ended up getting married. Yeah. And then I quickly called up my dealer because I had become really good family with him. So he actually picked me up at a bar one night because I was with my pimp, and he smacked me at the bar. So this gentleman came in and said, I'm taking her. And he took me in, and I was a part of the family immediately. I stayed there. They fed me. I helped him do his runs. It was just love. I didn't ever have to sleep with him. It was just we were friends. Like, he really, truly cared. So when I got out of rehab, I called him, and I started, because I was in Detroit, so I started running drugs for his cousin in Detroit, who lives on 8 Mile. I don't know if you guys know anything about it, but there's not really a white woman down there alone a lot. So I started doing that for him, and my husband at the time was just doing Xanax and drinking. And then one night I had a run, so I had a whole bunch with me, and my husband had never done a hard drug in his life. He was marijuana, he was Xanax. And I didn't think he was curious in what I was doing. But one night I took a huge syringe full. I fell asleep, and I woke up in the morning, did another shot right away. And then I started calling him because he was in the bed. He was on the floor right next to me, and I was like, hey, it's time to wake up. Like, we got to go. And then he wasn't responding. I went over to him, and there was, like, blood pouring out of his mouth, and he was freezing cold.
Oh, no.
So I called the police. I got arrested that day because he had marijuana in the home, so they charged me with that. I had morphine that wasn't prescribed to me, so I was charged with that.
Yeah.
And then I was charged, they were trying to charge me with manufacturing and delivering in the cause of death. So I went to jail. I got out and found this program in Argentina.
So how'd you find it? What kind of miracle is that?
That miracle's name is Jimmy Lunt.
Yeah.
I went to high school with him.
Okay.
And he was actually down there in Argentina doing the treatment program. So my parents and my grandpa, who I was really close with, started talking about, like, hey, what are we gonna do? Is this an option for her? When my husband died, I sunk. I had no idea who I was or what I was going to do. All I knew was that if I continued doing what I was going to do, I was going to die or I was going to be locked up. Those were my options. I had no other options.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to let go of the heroin. So my grandparents from Chicago picked me up. I moved in with them. And then my grandfather, who was like kind of like a dad to me, that's how important he was, had gotten sick with cancer. We didn't think it was going to go that fast, but when I was back, he was on hospice, and I was stealing his morphine because he begged me to not go out on the streets anymore and to try to use his morphine. I still went out on the streets. I found a dealer who wasn't locked up one night, and he made me have sex in front of his wife with him, and then he gave me heroin. And as my grandfather died that day, I held his hand, and I promised him I was going to go to this place in Argentina, and I was going to try. That I didn't know if I could do it, but I was going to try for him. And he died as I held his hand saying that. So.
All right. So then what happened? How did you get to Argentina? How does somebody even enter into a program like that?
So technically the police were still investigating me, but didn't have anything to charge me with. And I didn't have, they weren't going to pick me up or anything at this point. And my dad's a police officer and knew that. So right after the funeral, I packed a bag and headed to Argentina. My dad brought me on the plane. I knew nothing about it. I got a couple of bottles of Suboxone or methadone.
Yeah.
So I took some methadone.
Yeah.
And I remember I drank a whole bottle the day before we left, and then I had a bottle for the airport because it lasts, 48 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
So I took as much as I could. And I remember the whole time we're in the airport, because my dad's a cop, the whole time we were in the airport, he's going, "Did you stick something in my bag?
Wow.
Is there anything in my bag?"
Right.
And I'm like,
yeah, let me tell you.
"No."
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got that.
Yeah. I said, "There's nothing in your bag."
Yeah.
There's stuff in my bag.
Right.
So I went to the bathroom. I drank my last morphine. I took a couple of hits of heroin. We got on the plane. At this point, I'm so high, I forget about it. I didn't even know. I finally leaned over to my dad, and he said it was the most embarrassing thing. But I leaned over to my dad, and I asked him, "Hey, am I going to see the Great Wall of China?"
What?
So I had no clue where I was going or what I was doing at that point.
Right.
But we got to the treatment center, and just the second I got there, there was so much love. They had this beautiful, you walk in and there's bedrooms and balconies and flowers, but you walk in and there's a big dining room, and they had that entire thing set up with croissants and meats, and I hadn't eaten in God knows how long.
Yeah.
And coffee, and their first thing was, "We love you."
Oh, wow.
That's the first comment. "We love you, and we're gonna love you."
Yeah. That is a sign of
And
hope.
it was, yes.
Sure.
It was the first time I felt like maybe I can breathe.
Yeah.
Maybe I can let it go.
Right. You weren't being treated like a criminal.
Right.
And like other people had been treating you with zero respect.
Yes.
Goes your dignity at that point. All right. So then, what's the treatment like there? I know that there's success rates.
Yeah.
So we'll just talk about that. But what was your experience in treatment?
Yeah. So it was actually wonderful. They use philosophy and traditional medicine, so it's completely different. You 100% go into detox immediately. And I had a woman down there, and I called her Mamacita. And every night she'd bring me a tea. And every night she would sit there and rub my legs until I fell asleep. And then right away in the morning, she's there with breakfast and a coffee. And they just like, it's literally like a family. Like, she was my mom in Argentina. She was my mom. And then you have coaches. So I had a philosophy coach, Chucha, and Sylvia were my main coaches. And what they do is they work on your emotions. Why did you do this? What happened? Because there's a reason behind why you actually started this.
Sure.
So they started to like unravel that. They have doctors there on site. So I was always being seen and tracked and everything like that. Was not easy. I remember there was a day where I said, "I'm sorry, Grandpa, I can't do this. I need a sign. I'm done. I hurt and I want to go home. I don't want to be here." And I remember my coach was sitting on the bed, smoking her cigarette, drinking her coffee, and I was so mad and I was saying really mean things. And I said, "I'm going home, I'm packing." And she said, "Okay, pack." So I started packing. And as we were packing, she was slowly talking to me. Why do you want to go home? What are you feeling? I know you're annoyed. I know you're frustrated, but why? And she started to slowly, in a non-antagonizing way, because I feel like a lot of people antagonize. They push and push and push, and it's almost like they're judging you. But there was no judgment in this conversation. And I remember by the end of it, I was crying, and I looked at her and I said, "I don't want to go home. I want to be better." And she stood up and hugged me and said, "I'll help you unpack."
Yeah.
You know?
I think there's so much nowadays, too, where we're looking for the why.
Yes.
Which really is a huge cathartic moment for many people when you figure out that why.
Right.
Like, why am I here? What do I want? So then tell me about that. This place is not that cheap.
No.
And treatment sometimes can be expensive. And for a
Correct.
lot of folks, maybe this is an option. But tell us how that came to be, too.
So CMI is technically not open anymore. But I think they're working a little bit in the United States. I actually found out 4 weeks ago that Chucha is here.
Wow.
So I've actually gotten to hug her and just see her.
Incredible.
Yeah, so that's really nice. That was amazing. But yes, it was very expensive, and it's hard on my parents. And Jeff Elhart helped me raise the money to stay my extra year.
Yeah.
Because it's 1 year inpatient and then 1 year outpatient, and you get an apartment right by the complex.
Wow.
And then I actually opted to stay for another year because I met my husband.
So you were there 3 years?
3 years.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, what an opportunity, though. Were a lot of the folks that were working there in recovery themselves?
No.
Okay, but you were just a support. You were working off the grounds.
Yep.
And you met your husband there,
Yep.
right?
And a lot of guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I was the only girl that completed this treatment program completely. Yep.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so then you get back, and you're back in your community. What did you do to keep that recovery going?
Yeah.
Because it's so tempting to go back to those old friends and connect with them again.
Right. So I actually was really scared. I knew I had to turn myself in because there was a warrant out for my arrest.
Sure.
So the second I landed in Texas, I think it was, I was arrested immediately by the marshals. Now, I had been out of this lifestyle for 3 years. So my thought is, great, I'm going to jail, and now I have to be my old self,
Yes.
essentially, right? So they arrest me in Grand Rapids, then the marshals picked me up and brought me back to Detroit for processing. It was a weekend, so I stayed in jail in maximum security for 3 days. And then finally, the judge saw me and released me. And then we had an actual trial where it actually got really scary for me. We went to trial, and I had a court-appointed lawyer. I didn't have much. So when we got there, the other side said, we're charging her in manufacturing and delivering in the cause of death. So they were charging me for my husband's death.
Wow.
Yeah. So immediately my heart sunk. I'd done all this work. I'm going to jail. I'm going to prison.
Yeah.
And the judge looked straight at me and said, you've done your recovery. I don't want to punish you. So she sentenced me to 1 year of probation. And all I had to do was just check in with my probation officer. And honestly, if it wasn't for my probation officer, I think I would have gone back to the streets, because she was so helpful. She was so positive.
Yeah.
And she really rooted for me.
Yeah. You really were surrounded with some good people.
Yeah. My
in those
family was
moments.
there. Yeah. Like,
You got it.
everybody was rooting.
And, in mental health terms, we call those protective factors. And I think oftentimes when people get to that point of, that losing all hope,
Right.
we've got to look for those people that can bring us up, that
Absolutely.
can see the best in us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I love that about your probation officer. That's a good story
Yeah,
oftentimes
it
to share
is.
too. So, part of the work that we do, obviously, at the Mental Health Foundation, and Be Nice, is go through our tool, which is Notice, Invite, Challenge, and Empower. So as you look back, what were the things that people could have noticed at the onset of what was going on with you? So way back, we're talking when you were 17.
Yeah.
What could people have noticed then? Maybe to have jumped in at that time.
I think I really struggled in school, so that immediately was a red flag, because I had dyslexia and a lot of learning disabilities. So I think automatically that's a red flag.
It sure is. That is a risk factor.
Yeah,
So
100.
when somebody's already struggling with some type of a disability, which that is dyslexia, then we need to be mindful that someone who's struggling can also suddenly try to cope with that,
Right.
with an introduction of drugs and alcohol.
Right.
All right, keep going.
Because it 100% covers up your feelings.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of doing drugs, is you're covering up something you don't want to feel
Sure.
or you don't want to be.
All right, and also school. That's a big thing, that the minute we see kids struggling in school, missing school,
Yep.
right? What was going on with typical daily activities? Were you skipping school?
Yeah.
And
I ditched school a lot. I was in detention a lot. Started drinking.
Yeah.
Parents knew it because I would come home drunk. And
did your friend group change then too? Or were they in similar situations?
they were a little bit in similar situations,
Yeah.
but not like I was. They were more like just, hey, we can do it on the weekend, or we can do it on a girls' night. It wasn't what it was for me. For me, it was a cover-up of self-hate.
Yeah.
A lot of it was self-hate, like, you're stupid, you can't learn anything, you're different than everybody, and sometimes my dad brought that out in me, and I constantly wanted to be enough.
Yeah. Well, it's hard,
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes parents are looking for any way that they can change a behavior.
Absolutely.
It sounds like with the action plan, I invite, a lot of that happened in Argentina.
Yes.
And ultimately, I love your story of just the minute you got there, that it was full of love. But then in addition, the challenge that you received, the why.
Yes.
the why question
The why.
to you.
Yes,
that really,
100%.
Yeah, you could have been gone at that point. And then what about empowering? What advice would you give to someone who wants to support a loved one through addiction or depression in an empowering and ultimately what you're saying, that non-judgmental way?
Right. I would, to the best of your ability, leave out any judgmental or anything that you're harboring, like anger or frustration with them. Try to leave that out of the conversation. Try to build them up and say, hey, you can do this. Let's see if we can go do this. Find something they're interested in and just bring it out of them.
Excellent. And that's that whole still valuing the person for who they are.
Right.
Because there is a person right there. The addiction is that illness. Your book is just so amazing, and I hope that people will also look for, where can they find your book to get it?
So Amazon. They can actually go right on Amazon to get it.
All right, well, that's pretty easy. And then, so now, are you continuing in treatment right now?
I am. So I just got diagnosed with PTSD because of the life I lived on the streets was not great. Like one night, a friend got lost in Detroit, and I was trying to find her. So I had her go to a gas station, and it was the other guy's turf, but I wasn't selling. But him and a whole bunch of guys showed up, and I told her to run, and she did. I said, just drive, get as far away as you can. And they beat me, and every single one of them raped me. So there's so many of those stories. So I'm constantly working on getting better. And now I've learned, like a lot of my mental stuff is kind of PTSD, and how do you deal with that? And I'm going to counseling, and I do little different videos, and so I'm always working on myself. I'm never going to let that go.
Right. And it's a journey.
Yeah.
And it is like any illness. It may, at times, things may resurface. And for you, I commend you for putting it and writing it down in a book.
Yeah.
And then on top of it all, being here with us today on this podcast. A lot of sharing, a lot of, difficult things to hear sometimes, but I think that your perspective on it, it's real. And I think people need to understand that also, that it is not, and it's going to bust the stigma again, that it wasn't a choice. And it's so hard for people to understand the difficulties that are going on in people's heads and when they make the decisions. Also there's such a high rate of impulsivity amongst kids too, that when I can't deal with something, I'm going to do. And so oftentimes those aren't great decisions that we make.
Right.
Anyway, I just want to thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to doing more things with you in the future.
Yes, of course.
I want to thank everybody for listening to today's episode on the Be Nice podcast. I've got the chills. I think today we busted a harmful myth. I think we did about substance use disorder. And I hope that by sharing stories like yours and other stories that we're going to be listening to, we can continue to break down the stigma.
They just have to remember, the person doing it doesn't want to be doing it and has guilt for doing it. And the people that are trying to help sometimes maybe don't know how to help in the right way, but they need to understand that their loved one doesn't want to be what they are.
You got it. Amen. I love it. So don't forget, if someone is struggling, there are resources available. Text NICE to 741741. Pass out that hotline as often as you can, 988, if somebody wants to chat. And please visit our website, benice.org, to learn more about some resources that are out there. Help is available. And until the next time, be nice. It can save a life.
This podcast is made possible in part by the Kent County Medical Society Alliance.